Hey yo, salute to all my subscribers and a special shout out to everybody else passing through. YouTube, what's good? So I was talking to somebody earlier today, and they were telling me about a wedding that they had recently gone to. And I asked how the wedding was, and they were telling me about how, they really loved the part where the vows were exchanged and how the bride and the groom exchanged their own vows and they kind of wrote them out themselves, and it was really beautiful, really amazing, and really left this person feeling, really kind of high, high after the wedding, off of all of the emotions, I guess, that were running high as one of their close friends who had gotten married. And then we started talking. I come across different people in the hospitality industry in the, decade plus years that I've been in the industry. And I meet people weekend after weekend after weekend who were either about to get married or getting married or had just gotten married. And it's always this thing where, these newly married couples are just so full of energy, full of excitement, full of optimism about the future. And, really is a wonderful thing. It really is. It's an amazing thing. And it always takes so much out of me, because I'm in a professional environment, I'm in a professional industry. It takes so much out of me, to have, to be able to say congratulations and, appear as if I'm, in a good mood for, regarding their situation, and I'm happy and that I'm, smiling and that I'm giving off all the right, vibes, as far as communicating and coming across as if I'm truly happy for them. The truth is, whenever I hear about someone getting married or whenever I hear that someone just got married, instantly I feel very concerned, especially when it's people who are, of my generation and right behind my generation, the 80s babies, the 90s babies, because it's just a fucked up situation. So I started talking, with this person about a little bit about marriage, and they were talking about how, they had been married. They're married now for 3 years and still in that honeymoon stage. And my question was, and I didn't even realize that I had asked the question until I did, because my way of thinking now is just so stripped away from societal views on what people think marriage is and what it's really about. And I'm so hindsight conscious now, after the mistakes that I've made over the years and the wrong decisions that I've made to be involved with and to be around, the wrong caliber of people. And so the question I asked, to this person was, in 3 years of your marriage having now transpired, do you feel that you're still in the honeymoon stage? And the answer was very interesting. The answer was, yes, I feel that we are still in the honeymoon stage. And then there was a second part to the answer. And that second part to the answer was, I feel like we're always going to be in the honeymoon stage. And immediately when I hear stuff like that, it's almost as if I immediately forget, my environment, the environment that I'm in. And then once I forget what environment I'm in, depending on those certain triggers, then it just turns into a conversation. I immediately go into podcast mode. I go into my YouTube mode, my, philosophical mode. It just happens, automatic. So my response was, you're not going to always be in the honeymoon stage. And the person kind of turned and looked at me, kind of with this like inquisitive look on their face. And then, they kind of walked a little closer over to me where I was sitting. And we started talking. And then I started going into, the amount of time that I've been married and the different things that have, that could transpire throughout the course of their relationship, their marriage. And the reason why I'm making this blog is because it's always interesting for me when I have certain discussions with people, perfect strangers, but the vibe is there and those lines of communication are open. And you can always tell at the end of a discussion or at the end of a conversation when someone is really vibing with you and feeling what you're saying on a different level. It's not surface. It's not, what It's not about stereotypes or societal views, or it's not about religious views. It's just a different kind of connection that they're really tuned into what you're saying. And I don't know if this person was tuned into what I was saying because of how much longer a period of time, that I explained that I had been married for, or if they just saw in that the experience and felt what I was saying was true. Because I believe that, part of the reason why I feel communication is so important is because as we communicate more and more with each other on those deeper levels, you can feel those true vibes, and you can innately feel, what communication is true and genuine and comes from a different place and comes from a place of wisdom and understanding and true inquiry, and not just a person being nosy or a person just talking just to hear themselves talk, but it's actually coming from a place of experience, a place of, I've been through that, and I don't want you to have a false perception. And so here's the thing, before false perception sets in with this blog, 5 minutes in. When I made the statement, you're not going to always be in the honeymoon stage, it wasn't from a place of bitterness. It wasn't from a place of being jaded or being biased toward other people's good situations just because, my situation or potential situation might not have been as good as it's being explained or described. It was coming from a place of, let me help you, because that's another part that I think is important. Why we need to all communicate more, and what this channel and this platform is put here for. All the people, it's many reasons, it's many things, but pertaining to marriage and pertaining to relationships. Whether you're younger, older, if you've never been married and you're getting married for the first time, there are things and there are different stages and experiences and episodes throughout the amount of time and the amount of things that I've seen and the reflections that I've made that I feel can really give insights into what people should do going into their marriage, to really be conscious and mindful of the things that can transpire throughout the course of that marriage, that relationship. So we started talking, and I was explaining how you can't avoid what's going to happen. What's going to happen is going to happen. Whether 5 years go by and you grow apart from this person and you just come to the realization one day that, we're just not, this is just not for us. We're just not on that level. Maybe we never were. Maybe we were and grew apart, whatever it is. If someone cheats, if someone, whatever could possibly happen in a negative aspect that causes relationships to become strained and then ultimately fall apart. We started talking about those vows because that's what initially instigated the discussion. And I said, it's interesting how people get married and they're up there at that altar or in the courthouse or wherever they're exchanging these vows. And whether it's vows that you wrote out yourself or it's just the standard traditional vows that you're reciting. And I started talking about how there are very specific reasons why there's a specific verbiage that is typically recited when you get married to someone. And those vows can deviate, but always include, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, these different things. And I was explaining how at 3 years in, you may not have seen it yet, but at some point, if you stay married long enough, you may not experience every single one of the issues or the occurrences of what your vows are alluding to, but you will 100% experience some of them. And the longer you stay married, the more of those things you'll experience. There's real forecasts that were built into vows that you recite to one another when you get married. The sickness and in health, we're all human. We're going to be healthy, we're going to be sick. It's going to happen. That sickness can be a cold, it can be the flu, it can be a major medical condition that comes up. But the longer you stay married, the older you get, our bodies just start to fall apart. That's just life. In sickness and in health, richer or for poorer, with finances, especially in the day and time that we live in, the economy is just crazy. It's all over the place. You're going to be up, you're going to be down. You're going to You're going to make money, you're going to lose money, and it's just the way it is. So that's built in for a specific reason. And the most important part that I see also, that affects the majority of the relationships and the marriages in my generation is the fidelity part. Because there's a part in vows that says that you're agreeing, promising, vowing to forsake all others. And that's really one of the big ones too. Because a lot of people who might not acknowledge it up front may not realize the detriment that it causes. But if you are ever in a situation, have ever been in a situation where a person that you've committed yourself to was unfaithful to you, however you define that, in any way, shape, or form, that's a lot harder to get past than people realize. But that's not the purpose of this blog. The purpose is we were talking about vows. And what I was trying to get across to this person I was talking to and trying to explain was, you're only 3 years in. It's soon enough for you, if you're still in that honeymoon stage, to go back to that day you took those vows. And my hope for everyone, when you take your vows, if you're planning to get married, if you have a marriage that's coming up, this person that you're looking at now as being the person that you're going to potentially spend the rest of your life with is very doable. It's very possible, but it's going to be work. It is a full-time job. There is effort, there's energy, there's time, there's sacrifice, there's compromise. There's so many things that need to go into this, and it needs to be taken seriously. But you can work hard at all those things. But if you forget the reason why you're taking those vows, and if you forget the actual words that you're saying and what those words mean, when things come up and when those hard times set in, you're not going to be able to get through. You're just not. The honeymoon stage in any marriage ends. For some people, it takes longer than others. For some people, it's instant real life. It depends on the situation that you're getting into when you get married. Some people are bringing multiple kids of their own on either side into a marriage, so that's a different kind of stress into that marriage, starting off. Some couples get married, they don't have kids, they're looking to build a family and start, for the first time. And that's different. You have more time to build and to grow and to get to know each other together. But regardless, every person who recites vows, every person who exchanges vows, every person who gets married, who signs their name on that marriage license, you're going to experience exactly what those vows are making reference to. And I feel like too many people focus on the day, and too many people focus on the ceremony and the inviting of friends and the planning of the party and the venue and all these different things. And that 10, 15-minute part of that whole celebration where you're standing there and you're reciting these vows and you're looking at this other person and you're making all these promises that you don't even realize right in that moment are empty promises because you're not paying attention to the actual words that are being exchanged. And so 5 years go by and financially things are not going well. And it may take some time. It doesn't always happen right away, but you're not thinking about those vows. It's not readily conscious to you that you took vows, that these finances should not affect that union. 2 years, 3 years, 7 years, 10 years, 6 years, however long down the line, you realize you might not be getting the attention that you feel like you deserve or the attention that you feel like you want or what have you. So you decide to start being unfaithful in whatever way that shouldn't be happening in that marriage. And you're forgetting those vows that you took. And I feel like as someone who's been involved in marriage for over a decade, as I look back at the different choices that I've made to engage with the wrong individual, to tie a knot with a person who clearly wasn't paying attention to those vows, I feel it's incumbent on me, just because of what I stand for and because of what this platform is about, and because of what this channel means, to impart that wisdom on anybody I come across who I have the opportunity to speak with and communicate with. Because at some point in time, it might not be the same thing for you as it is for the next person, and it might not be the same for them as the next person, so on and so forth. But there's always going to be something that's going to test your relationship, whatever that relationship is. And I don't care if that relationship is a heterosexual relationship, a homosexual relationship. I don't care if that relationship is just a friendship, if it's a marriage, if it's a whatever your relationship is. The longer you're in a relationship with a person, the longer you interact with a person, no matter who that person is, no matter how in sync you are, no matter how well you guys vibe together, something is going to test that relationship. Just a natural occurrence of things. It's just the way it is. And I think without the proper communication and without understanding through those times that you're communicating and having those discussions up front, and realizing that, look, we discussed this, and now we're going through some things that are testing the vibe, the connection, the things that we discussed. The tricky part is staying mindful of those things that were discussed, of those promises that were made, those vows that were exchanged. It's very important. I personally don't believe in marriage anymore. And it's not because of situations that I've had to experience. It's just because that I understand what marriage really is about. I understand that it's really a business contract. It's really a business merger. And it's really a governmental entity, present day, for the purposes of merging two people together, for tax reasons and for, other things that the government uses, and whatever it is the government does with whatever information is provided to them. And I understand the difference between marriage present day and from what it was, hundreds and thousands of years ago, and in this current social climate with social media, with the internet, with all the access that we have, direct access that we have to so many more people, so far outside of the construct of our current relationship, whatever relationship you're in right now. There's too much access, and we can't handle it because we're not designed. We need connection. It's a part of life. It's human nature. We have an innate urge to be connected to people. But there's a limit. There's so much connection. There's so much access you can have. And because the world is so small, and because our access is so unlimited to people, with all the apps and the, instant messaging, direct messaging, texting, FaceTime, all the different ways that we can interact with so many different people, it's so easy to get distracted from your relationship. It's so easy to get distracted from the promises that you made to that person that you claim you're going to walk through life with. And it doesn't matter what the reason is. It doesn't matter why you chose to stray away from those promises. It doesn't matter why you chose to betray those vows. The fact is that it happened. It's going to happen if it hasn't happened yet. So what needs to be focused on is you have two choices. If you're insistent on getting involved in a marriage with someone, because I believe, honestly, at this point, if I could go back, start my life over again, being committed in a relationship would be enough for me. I don't think anyone should get married. I just don't believe in the construct of marriage. What we still think it is and what it actually is and how it's treated and the pressure that it adds to things unnecessarily. I just don't think it's a smart venture. And that's what it is. It's a business venture. You may not choose to look at it as such, but that's what it is. And there's so many, pitfalls, and there's so many win loss or profit loss categories, however you want to structure it, however you want to perceive it. There's so many assets versus liabilities when you're dealing with other people in close quarter relationships, that it's just not worth it. Because at least in a committed relationship where you're not married, if things don't work out, if you start to discover things about this person, you're not locked into the point where you don't have to go to a court, have a judge okay you to become legally separated from this person. that you can move on with your life and not have to worry about any ties legally. And that's extra stress, extra pressure, and it's unnecessary. Once you sign that contract, because that's what it is. It's a license. Essentially, it's a contract. You're signing it. Once you sign a legal document, it becomes essentially like a contract. And the fine print in that contract, the fine print on that marriage license, is not readily visible for you to read and see, but it exists nonetheless. And you don't see it until the back end of that relationship happens. When things go wrong, you end up in divorce court, or you end up in counseling, or you end up with these built up resentments for this person that you thought you knew, or this person that you believed would never do anything against the best interest of the relationship because of the vows that were exchanged. That as you look back in hindsight, with it being 2020, you realize it's really a catch-22. It is a conundrum. I don't believe that anyone who exchanges vows on their wedding day, on the day that they get married, is intending on not keeping them. I just think that people don't understand the weight of the vows that are being exchanged. And you can break them down, and you can go line by line. But you look through any marriage, look through any relationship, one or some or all of those vows, at some point, you stay married long enough, one of the parties in that union, in that relationship, is going to break one or some or all of those vows. It may not happen all at once, and they may not all occur to the same degree, but it's going to happen. You can't avoid that, whether it's by accident, whether it's just a natural course of life, whether it's just because people always tend to their best interests when it really comes down to it before they're going to tend to someone else's. Whatever it is, whatever works for you, you do what you do. But my job with this platform, my job with this channel, is to make sure that everyone, if I've experienced it, if I've lived through it, then I've done that so that you don't have to. And I've done that so that I can at least pass on the tools to someone else who's thinking about engaging in the type of relationship that is supposed to be forever, but by nature of what forever means, and by the nature of the current climate that we live in, present day, it's really not possible. But if you're going to do it, if you're insistent on doing it, if you just feel like you just have to be married because there's all these different principles that you have, that's fine. But if you're going to do it, first of all, do it with the right person. Know who you're getting involved with. Know what their strengths and their weaknesses are. Because it's never a person's strengths that are going to cause them or you the most issues. It's what their weaknesses are. And their weaknesses don't have to have anything to do with you. See, people take the blame for why other people cheat. Someone can always look back and say, and fellas, I'm talking specifically to my fellas. This is pertaining to females for the most part. Females will always blame men when they step out on the relationship. Females will always find a way to have a reason, and society will side with them. So fellas, before you think about getting involved with a woman past the point that you cannot just pick up and walk away if you need to, if you feel like that environment is no longer healthy for you, if you feel like that female does not have your back the way that she should, or the way that she promised to be, or the way that you expected her to be, you need to understand that whatever weaknesses that female had, and this works both ways, this goes vice versa. This is not a gender biased platform or channel. It goes both ways. But society is harder on us men when we fall short. And when women fall short, men still get the blame. So that's why I'm talking to my fellas specifically in this portion of this blog. Whatever a person's weaknesses are, those weaknesses, pay close attention to them. Pay more attention to someone's weaknesses, their hang-ups, their shortcomings. Pay more attention to those things than you admire the strengths and the things that make you attracted to this person, the things that make you feel secure with this person. Pay more attention to their weaknesses, because their weaknesses won't trip them up, because they're used to their weaknesses. They've been living with their weaknesses their entire lives up to the point that you got involved with them. Their weaknesses are going to be the downfall of the relationship, and more specifically, they're going to be the cause of your downfall if you allow them to. So all I stopped by to say, if y'all are going to take vows, if y'all are going to be insistent on getting married, cool. If I ever find myself single again, I will never get married. I will never entertain it. My belief system has evolved so much over the course of the past decade or so. But if you're insistent on doing it, I never knock anything that anyone decides to do. Just be conscious of it, know who you're getting involved with. And when you meet someone, when you're dating someone, when you're thinking about making that final decision, because that's what marriage is supposed to be. And that's part of why divorce is so stressful and so hard, and why it has such a heavy toll, is because it's not designed to ever happen. Marriage is supposed to be, that's it, and you're done. But of course, life happens. I understand that. I'm not knocking divorce. I'm not knocking marriage. Just saying, all things that start at some point, they're going to end. However that end comes, whether it's through death, whether it's through divorce, whether it's whatever, all things that begin are going to end. And people need to be mindful of present time, past time, and future time when they make decisions that involve them getting into a relationship long term with a person, because of their past and your past will affect that relationship as it is current. And then what you and that other person choose to do, how you move through that current relationship, which is conditioned by whatever happened to both of you individually in the past, is going to both play a part in determining what's going to happen to that relationship in the future. I don't pretend to know everything. I just know what I know. Let me know what y'all think about this one, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace and love.